All right, in this episode, Ryan and I talk about marketing, German engineering, Japanese engineering in the automotive industry, and we talk about Dr. Seuss and Sneetches. We had fun, and we hope you enjoy. Thanks for listening. Welcome to the Banking with Life podcast. My name is James Neathery. I'm your host.
And I'm Ryan Griggs, your co-host.
And, as usual, we're having fun. And we hope you enjoy.
I think too much.
Going to get funner. Usual. I mean, I hate to say that twice in a row, but it's unscripted. Although
people ask us that. They're like a serious question. Like, Do you guys do editing? Are you scripted? It's like, I'd show you my notes, but there's too few to show. I mean, that's how unscripted this is. And we really mean that. Like, we come in, we sit down, we turn on the recording, and it's like, well, maybe we'll start at some point. And
we did
get around to it.
Pick a topic, which is good, but it was literally, did we mention the topic yesterday? Was it? So this is Saturday morning. This is in October. This episode won't be released until the end of the year, the first of the new year.
That's right. Happy New Year's.
Yes.
Thanks for ringing in the new year with your favorite podcast hosts.
That's right. Okay, so I think we picked a topic. We threw it out anyway. And so, we could talk about this. And then obviously we decided on it this morning because I did spend, 5 minutes kind of codifying my thought process. But there are no notes. It is always unscripted, and it is always unedited. As a matter of fact, the only editing that Andrew does is for the camera angles.
Right. Got to look good. I mean,
yeah, it needs to be aesthetically pleasing. And thank you for all the comments on the set.
Yeah,
we appreciate that. My lovely wife, Jana, great. I mean, she did it. Right. I mean, I kind of sketched out the lay, but
she did all of it.
Yeah. The dog in the back. All right. So we have a Great Dane. We have 3 dogs. The latest addition to the family, it was a Great Dane, Sadie, who's been with us probably 2 years. And I'm just saying, for you animal lovers, I love animals. I love all animals, and I love beef too, all meats. I had no idea how gentle Great Danes are. And so really this is almost
an ode to Sadie.
An ode, looks just like her. But thank you for the comments. I appreciate it.
In fact, the topic that we want to discuss today has really come from a lot of what we've heard from feedback from agents, from individuals, what we hear out in the industry today. And that is really the marketing and the business practices in the financial services world, right? And
so marketing is a topic.
Marketing, yeah.
And we're going to expand on that. And it's
how
two.
It's normally done.
Some of the marketing, look, you're in the life insurance, you're in the financial world. It's all about sales and numbers, from the business side, from the Wall Street, the brokers, the agencies, the insurance companies. It's all about numbers, right? Sell, 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 sell. And I think there's a difference between marketing and selling. But I'm greatly influenced by Jim Rohn, right?
R-O-H-N, Jim Rohn.
Jim Rohn. Oh, we'll have to put a link. And I'm sure most of you have probably heard of Jim Rohn, and most of you are probably already students of Jim Rohn. And if you're not, you have an opportunity. But from my position, influenced by Jim Rohn, it's absolutely attraction rather than promotion. Right.
I love that distinction.
I think that it's important. But
so let's blow that up, right? So I think in the financial world, the form of marketing that most agents, probably including the ones watching this podcast, and by the way, this is a dissenting opinion throughout the industry. So what you're going to hear here, what you're going to hear today, I doubt you'll hear elsewhere. Maybe you will, probably not. But I think we would classify the form of most marketing in the financial world, including within the infinite banking concept footprint, as promotional, right? And so what does that mean? Well, the way I describe it is the individual, the salesperson, has taking it upon themselves to, as their goal, to position themselves within your awareness somehow. They want to position themselves in front of you so that they can then persuade you, they can convince you that what they're offering is what you need, that you should therefore buy from them, right? So it's active, it's very outward oriented,
aggressive.
It can be aggressive. Yep. Yeah. So what sorts of things might you see when you encounter this style of marketing? It's what you see on Facebook and Instagram and YouTube. It's the click funnels, it's the spammy emails, it's the cold calling, right? If you're an agent and you go to work for a captive company, they want to suck you dry of your network as soon as possible. So task number 1 is project 100, project 200, whatever it is, whatever they call it. It's list down everybody you know and everybody they know.
Friends and family.
And log that into our system, right? And then work your way through them. You'll get tired. You're not going to convert many of them. You'll get over it. You'll leave. They tell you this. High turnover in the business, right? So you're gone, and guess where your contact book stayed? Okay, so all of this, that's one example, just one instance of the promotion style, position in front of you, persuade you, convince you. And look, I want to say this from the outset before we get too far into it. I don't know where I heard it from, but I think it came from a pastor actually. I assume and you assume angelic intentions. And
I learned that from you.
I had somebody ask me, what's that mean? What do you mean by that? And literally, I assume that everybody is motivated by the purest of holy angelic motivations and intentions, right? We're not talking about that. We're not trying to besmirch anybody's character. That's not the point. This is about what goes on in addition to all of those the people who are out there, those malicious actors. There's only a few of them. It's not many. Most people are well-intended. But what we're talking about here today is really beyond that. We don't want to get in anybody's heads. We're not trying to psychologize or anything like that, right? This is, everybody's out to do the best thing, and most of them are. Yet, there is still a dominant, identifiable, distinct form of marketing out there that frankly most people hate.
Well,
do you enjoy the cold calls and the spammy emails from everybody trying to get your business?
I'm like everyone else. Nobody woke up today and said, "Oh, I'm going to be sold something," right? And I understand there's a distinction between sales and marketing, but nobody wants to be sold. Nobody wants to be marketed to unless you're specifically interested in purchasing an item or a service. Then you'll tolerate some of the spammy emails, but it's all very uncomfortable. So no, the short answer is no. But let me say this: whenever I am interested in making a purchase of any kind, house remodeling, automobiles, air conditioners, suits, whatever. And I don't really have enough suits. I'm just throwing that out there. Shoes. I love shoes. I want to, let me talk about the clothier that doesn't exist in today's world, right? If I'm interested in a suit per se, as my example, and I do pay attention to details, and of course I like to look nice, I want everyone to look nice, feel nice. I want to talk to somebody who knows what they're talking about, right? You can't be dressed, this far away from Ronald McDonald and give me direction on how I should dress. You know what I mean? So I don't care what it is I'm buying. I want to speak with somebody who knows what they're talking about and is interested enough in me to understand what I want. Right? So, but no, I don't want to be marketed to. I don't want to be sold anything. But if I'm making a purchase, I want a salesman who is compensated for their skills.
Right. They should be highly skilled, highly competent,
Yep.
and compensated accordingly. I like the clothing example because I'm a suit jacket fan, or sport jacket fan.
Do you have patches on there? Do you have elbow patches?
Absolutely. You know, you can take the individual out of the academy, but you can't take the academy out of the individual. Anyway, so I'm in the market for a not a new car, but a recently pre-owned vehicle, right?
Oh yeah.
And ruined my whole experience by at first getting into a German car. I don't know what I've been doing for the last 11 years, driving Japanese. That was a mistake, but it's okay. It's been fine. The car worked out. Anyway, I'm looking to do a recently pre-owned German vehicle. German vehicles are more engineered. They're a little more complicated. So I'm out at the dealership, all right?
Only one?
Getting to it. What?
Only one dealership?
Well, no, I went to many, but at this particular one, getting to the car with the salesperson, the agent, and she's like, "So what do you think?" And I was like, "Well, I'll tell you what my number one concern is. My number one concern is carbon buildup affecting the turbo and the direct injection and the intake valves on this TSI engine." And by the way, for family of mine who watched that, yes, those words just came out of my mouth. 2 weeks ago, that would have been Greek.
They're shocked that he's that mechanically inclined.
Right, and I really have never been. I don't know what's going on, but I've since become interested in this.
Oh, wait.
So I say
Wait. So you're interested. So you did some research.
Did my research.
You had to read something?
Before I ever contacted anyone,
Yeah.
did my research. Vetted the fire out of these brands, right? Pinned it down to a specific model I like. You know, I've got certain reasons. I've got certain concerns. And so when I finally engaged what I wanted to be a competent, expert salesperson, I had specific questions. You know, I wanted these boxes checked. And so I ask her, and the poor girl looks to me and says, "I have no idea what you just said, but I'd be happy to get someone from the service team to answer them for you."
Is she part of your family?
No. And it's like, you know, okay, I appreciate the honesty. I always prefer honesty. All right. Oh, she could have made something up. She later attempted to in different aspects. But so I appreciate the honesty. But what I would prefer is someone who was an expert. And you kind of expect that, right? You go to a dealership, you want to get a car from a specific brand, especially if it's German, especially if it's complicated. You know, you want an expert's view of that particular vehicle.
So when you walked in the store, you expected the salesperson, the agent, to know their product. And
I mean, that was my initial expectation. I very quickly set that to the side and just resigned myself to having to educate the individual, right? Which you don't want to be in that position. Let's say that, right? I don't want to be in that position. I don't want to come to an individual salesperson and feel as though I have to educate them. You know, I don't want to, that's not who I might go to that dealership to test drive a car they have, right? Only because they have it, but I'm not going to go there to place my business, right? I shouldn't feel like I know more than the person, and cars are not my business, right? It is legitimate that we expect the individual who's in the business to have a better understanding than I do, right? I expect that in cars. Look, the reason we're going through this is so much of this, and of course, as I'm test driving the car, you know, half my mind is thinking about the sales system the agent's using, and the other half is thinking about the actual car.
Well, look, why didn't you just walk in there and give them your email address or your phone number so they could text you all these educational, you know, sales, promotional?
That's a great question. It's a great question, and I hadn't thought of it that way, but you know, that is exactly right. I don't do that, you know. I think the reason is I want to make a decision, right? This isn't about tire kicking. This isn't about going to every agent possible and then picking from the litter.
Being marketed to. You don't want to be sold. You don't want to be marketed to. You want what you want,
right?
And you want to understand the ramifications of what that is that you want.
I know there's a problem, namely my 11-year-old 08 Honda is getting ready to kick it, right? I have an issue. I need to resolve that issue, and I want to make a decision so I can execute and implement that decision. I don't have an interest in getting into any kind of program or any of that. I'm very specific, to the point. And by the way, I've had people like this. You've had people like this. You know, the way we're speaking, the way I'm talking now is in this example of cars and that kind of thing. But it applies to any high information sale. Okay, so this particular brand that I'm interested in, this particular German brand, it's kind of an entry level. It's not one of the fancy ones.
I mean, we can narrow that down to 2 or 3 brands.
Well, yeah, I don't know if they get offended if I say the name, but so this particular brand has a less than spotless reliability history, right? And so
according to who?
Right. So you get these individuals who they go to the dealership. This particular car has a certain problem that if you don't maintain the vehicle, it'll have a problem and it'll cost some money to fix it.
The turbocharge.
It's the turbocharge thing, and the specifically the carbon buildup on the intake valves. I can't believe I'm saying these things, but that's what the problem is. And
with that car,
to resolve this issue requires a labor-intensive and therefore fairly expensive cleaning. Right? Mm-hmm. And so when a dealer or an independent salesperson tells you, yeah, we got to perform a $750 cleaning on your vehicle for it to work right and make that engine light go away, the individual who is uninformed, who doesn't know, who didn't do their homework prior to the purchase, that individual becomes frustrated.
Sure.
And they become upset. They go to the forums, right? And they start to poke around online. They go to Facebook, they start threads, right? Hit the caps lock key, right? Start yelling and screaming through the fingertips, right? And then lo and behold, it reflects in these reliability ratings at Volkswagen. And so I'm telling, well, there it is. You can bleep that out, Andrew.
No, it's a Volkswagen.
It's a Volkswagen. So I'm telling the girl sitting there with me, I was like, you know what the problem is with this brand is, I hate to say it, a low information consumer. Yeah. And the reason that consumers are low information with respect to this particular brand, and I didn't say this part, but the reason is a low information salesperson. Mm-hmm. And so we create an environment where we get the false perceptions and frustration, and then we have to go back and return things and demand refunds. It just gets ugly, Yeah. And no one wants to be there. Nobody.
Well, the threads, that people are shouting on, in your case, on, social media, do you feel like that added to your education?
That's a great question. Absolutely not. It just obfuscates it, right? It makes it more difficult. And this is often what happens, that I've noticed in the automotive world, but it's true in the financial world, is that individuals who don't understand, who started off low information, who didn't prioritize the education overall before anything, those people, it's much easier to get frustrated. And when you're frustrated, you look for answers. And when somebody else who appears to have the confidence and the competence, allegedly,
the salesperson inside the building,
when they very forcefully present what may or may not be a legitimate explanation for a concern or a problem, right? The tendency is to just go off of their tone, their confidence, their charisma, right? Yeah. And we substitute legitimate understanding for aesthetic appeal. Oh, it sounds good. I like the way he said it. He must know what he's talking about. I'll just go with it.
And it's complicated, so it must be good.
If it's complicated, it must be sophisticated,
or if it's
right?
Flashy and smoke and mirrors. Mm-hmm. That's my terminology. If I'm speaking specifically about the infinite banking concept and however many different rebrands there are across the big wide world. If I move money from one pocket to another, just by the mere fact that I'm moving money, because money must be in motion, I'm going to become profitable. And I can do what a bank does by moving money from one pocket to the other. And just the mere presentation of, it's like taking money from one pocket and putting it into another pocket. I mean, that's a sales pitch from 60 years ago that's been drug out of the closet, dusted off, and revamped and rehung and now represented.
Right.
So
to answer that question, it was a good question. No, it doesn't help. All it is uninformed salespeople, technicians, and consumers contributing to to the noise.
Yeah, absolutely.
Contributing to the noise.
Yes, absolutely. Adding to the noise.
Right.
And we can have a whole podcast about adding to the noise, because the noise appears to be sinking into the Nelson Nash Institute and the footprint of the infinite banking concept. What noise has been in the financial world.
Nothing new. Yeah.
We live in a construct of noise. Half of it's on purpose. Some of it's ignorant. But oh my gosh, the noise. And this might be a good place to, point out that I know my headphones are, huge. I feel like a bug, with wearing these things, but yes, I have to wear them because of my hearing. So
notice.
However,
I don't.
Just saying, Nelson used to talk often about the infinite banking concept really is akin to wearing noise cancellation headsets. If I practice the infinite banking concept, I'm going to not engage or hear all the noise in the financial world. Mm-hmm. So, all right, all of the ignorance or with angelic intentions. So nobody's intentionally out there.
Nope.
Trying to present bad things or bad solutions. But do they help? Does it help clear the noise? Does it help bring clarity, or does it add to the noise?
Well, that's a good point there, is that on the angelic intentions, and no one's trying to do it. We're not saying that everyone's perfect. We far from it, right? What we are saying is that for the sake of argument, we're willing to put that aside, right? And people really do want to help. So you join, if you're an independent, maybe you join a marketing company and they've got a system. If you go to work for a captive company, and by the way, for those who don't know, a captive company is a company that essentially treats their agents or advisors as if they were employees. Whatever the tax status might be is beside the point, but they tell you when to be, where you got to be, how to be, what to say, when to say it, that kind of deal. And
they're captive. They can only write or represent the products of that particular company,
right?
Unless there's a selling agreement with that company and other companies. Yeah. But
so this applies across the board,
sure.
Of all the various sales systems out there. In the car world, to go back to the car example, I've noticed that at every different dealership I go to, it's always about, well, what can we do to entice you today? And I'm like, I don't know. How much money you got?
Motivated
nothing,
by money, are you?
I'll let you know when I'm going to make a decision, right? In the life insurance world, in the IBC world, the form that often takes, and again, from a angelic perspective, I call it selling from the illustration, right? The way to motivate someone, to put them over the edge, to maybe paper over the questions they might have, the uncertainties they might have, is to get that sheet of numbers in front of someone as quick as possible. And then look at that number. Look how big it is way up there.
You're specifically speaking then of a life insurance illustration.
Right.
Okay. Mm-hmm. Which we talk about often. And yes, by the time this episode is aired, there will be a playlist on illustrations. Mm-hmm. And that's really just plain numbers.
Right. So this is, just to be clear, this is the financial projection that an agent or advisor can acquire through the software of a given company. And then that illustration will show, usually based on the current experience of the company and assuming certain premium levels, what the results in terms of cash value, death benefit, and dividends will be, right? That's what we mean when we say illustration. And so you might say, well, wait, why wouldn't I? I mean, that sounds good, right? Won't that be helpful? And I think in a past podcast episode, I said that if the educational foundation has been laid, then the illustration can be a source of clarity. But if the educational foundation has not been laid, or worse, if it's tampered with, then the illustration becomes a source of confusion.
The only thing I can add to that is, I can add a lot to that, but I'm not going to get a real education from a life insurance illustration other than, what's going on in that life insurance illustration. I can be educated to that fact, what's going on. And typically if that education, historically there's, historically there's very little education on life insurance, hence which adds to the confusion. If we're trying to do something technical, with a life insurance policy or a series of policies, there needs to be some education on how those life insurance policies work and what's behind the illustration. But I'm not really going to get educated on the infinite banking concept looking at a life insurance illustration. You're not going to read Nelson Nash's book, his first book, Becoming Your Own Banker, and looking at those illustrations and walking away with, oh man, I understand how the infinite banking concept works. There's a lot of verbiage in that book and it's simply written. And in my experience over the last 15, 16 years, it's very easy to jump over the concept and what the message that Nelson is conveying outside of the numbers, right? Now, a life insurance illustration, we've said it many times, it's very important. But what is most important, in my opinion, is the construct and the understanding of the owner. Whenever I put money into a life insurance policy or wherever I put money, I don't care what asset it is. And yes, life insurance is an asset. I want to understand the characteristics of that asset. I want to be able to maintain, to manage, I want that asset to serve me well over my whole lifetime. So I need to understand my abilities, within that policy. And I've said it exactly before, life insurance is a contract. It's a unilateral contract that, the life insurance company can't change anything about that unless they're adding benefits with your approval. And yes, some actually do that. But I have contractual obligations and I have contractual rights. And those things, what are your rights? What are your obligations? You should be keenly aware of them. You should know them. And you are hard-pressed sometimes to understand what those are until you've purchased and then you actually have the life insurance contract and then you actually read the life insurance contract. I mean, I find it appalling that agents, advisors, car salespeople, whomever they are, clothiers, not understanding their product, but yet they're encouraging you to put your money into it.
Yeah. Well, let's take it back to the car example. I think it's something that people can kind of relate to. I put 11 years on my last car. I want to put another 10 on the next one I get. I want it to last. If you're doing infinite banking, you're going to want it to last, right? Your whole life.
Well, wait a minute.
Right? So this is just a smaller scale example here, right? But the same principles apply. What were you going to say?
Do you want the car to be most efficient in the 3rd year, the 4th year, or the 10th year?
What I would prefer is that it run and perform the way I expected it to prior to the sale, right? And a dealer can hand me all sorts of documentation from the dealer and all sorts of marketing documentation, and you can tell me this or that. One popular thing is, there's a lot of debate online about whether it matters what kind of fuel you put in your car.
Right.
Unleaded, premium, super premium, whatever. And most people say, oh, it doesn't matter. It's all a scam, right? Everyone's trying to scam you. Yeah. And that's fine. But as the communists and technocrats have added more and more emissions controls, the engineers, in order to preserve engine performance, have had to complicate the vehicle, right? So now you have things like direct injection and turbochargers, right, with lower number cylinder vehicles, right, a 4-cylinder rather than a 6, and having to make that transition. It's unpleasant.
We're going to take a 100 horsepower engine and turbocharge it and make it 185.
Yeah, we're going to add all these little more complicated gimmicks and things to it, right? And okay, some I can avoid and some I have to endure because it's kind of like the mech limit, It's like life insurance before 1988 was pretty awesome, but we got to deal with the mech limits now, modified endowment contract rules now. So we kind of have to accept it, and we have to modify what we do in order to optimize the performance of the policy.
Because of the technocrats and the communists.
Right. Okay, so that's what's going on in the background. The point of it is that there are some complicated issues that, I need to know as the owner, the one I'm going to own this asset. It's mine. Right? I'm the one that's going to be responsible for ensuring its duration as long as I want it to last, right? So I need to know before I get started how these specific elements are addressed, right? And with particular clarity. And the same thing applies with the design of a dividend-paying whole life policy. You've got to understand it. And just putting down on a piece of paper how the dealer expects the car to perform over 10 years under certain assumptions, I don't care. I do not care, right? I need to know what certain things I need to do to maximize the performance of this particular asset, in this case, an automobile. And I do view it as an asset. I know you got to pay for it, blah, blah, blah. But trust me, German cars provide enjoyment. It's an asset. So I'm going to enjoy it, but I need to have that resolved mentally, conceptually in my mind, right? Regardless of what a particular paper says. Okay, so in the illustration, in terms of IBC and in the illustration can say whatever it wants, right? I need to know for myself what my, like you were saying, what my contractual authority is, what I'm permitted to do by contract to ensure optimum, maximum performance in this particular asset. So if you do it with the car, you might want to be doing it with your finances.
Yeah, that's well said. I mean, I just want to make sure you know how to drive.
Pay the premium.
And then can you check the oil? And do you check the oil? Mm-hmm. And, it's...
Don't you like how they say it in Texas? Oil. Oil.
Oil.
When I learned English, there's an I in that word, but...
Well, I don't necessarily... I've never professed to speak proper English. Right? I married a grammarian, and I am not.
People beat you up for talking slow, don't they?
Yeah, they do. It's like, you talk slow, you must be slow.
Well, let me say this, and because I know that's out there, and I've heard little comments like that. Just understand what I know about life insurance, I learned from him. And sometimes when something is put a certain way and it's said in a certain way, it might be appropriate to sit back and listen. I mean, that's what I do for me, and I've learned a lot that way.
Thank you for saying that. Yeah. I don't mind, I like smoothness, aesthetics, I don't mind being slow. I don't have to be the fastest guy in line. And I'm typically the quiet guy in the room, but that leads me into when it comes to, marketing, sales, education, because I think there's an incredible amount of education that's maybe fundamental and simple, but if we're going to practice the infinite banking concept, there's a certain level of education that is required. Mm-hmm. If you're going to put your money into it and use it and it serve you well over your lifetime. And I've said this previously too, we all are aware of Aesop's fables, right? The tortoise and the hare. And I didn't know that goes back, the tortoise and the hare goes back to ancient Greece, handed down verbally. I think the book came out in the 30s or so, but very simple. The hare's flashy, he's got to get there first, and the tortoise wins, slow and steady, however you want to say it. So you can look at life insurance structured correctly and compare it to whatever you want to. If I'm putting my money in life insurance, it's structured correctly with a mutual company that pays dividends, even if there's outstanding loans, and their philosophy embraces the infinite banking concept, I'm going to win, hands down, compared to wherever else you want to put your money. And just by practicing the infinite banking concept, yes, can I go invest in real estate collaterally through life insurance loans? Yeah, man, you can do whatever you want to do. Mm-hmm. But if I just finance automobiles, since we're talking about automobiles, the average family, if you think about this, I say the average, and everybody listening is above average. There's no question. But statistically, a husband and a wife, if we drive cars every 5 years or replace cars every 5 years, and that means that we're buying a car every 2.5 years, whether they're new or pre-owned. Well, like me, I drive mine into the ground every, 10 years, let's say. I replace a car. Well, that means I'm going to buy a car every 5 years. Right, now, we do that over a lifetime. You consider how long you've been driving, how much you pay for each car you purchase, project that out over your lifetime. You're going to drive to your 85, 90. Nelson drove till he was 88. And how many cars are you actually going to purchase? There's an awful lot of money that's being paid for the privilege of driving cars. And you can recapture, however you want to phrase it, the equivalent cost of that privilege over your lifetime when you practice the infinite banking concept. Now, I did not mention a rate of return. I did not mention interest rates. I did not mention anything that's coming from the typical financial construct. Right. I just am going to practice being my own banker, doing the things that I was going to do anyway. And I'm just talking about automobiles, since we're talking about automobiles. And then I'm not mentioning the education, education, vacation, how many homes are you going to purchase, whatever it is you're doing in business. I'm just talking about cars. And you'll
passive
find
income later in life.
Yes. And whenever you practice the infinite banking concept how much, I'll back up, that typical family is going to spend well over $1 million for the privilege of driving cars. How much of that, or the equivalent of that $1 million, would you like to retain? And still continue to drive the cars that you want to drive? German or Japanese or Japanese, Americanese?
No. Yeah. I had a friend ask me, he's like, why don't you buy American? And I said, because I'm tired of sending the government money.
Well, you're supporting the. I don't want to get too political, but you can.
Well, I'll say this. Little digression as far as getting distracted with the numbers. I see this happening in the world of Austrian economics, in the methodology that a lot of the younger and just the generation right before me are engrossed in, and it's not everybody, but the mathematical modeling, it's more elegant and it's just more aesthetically pleasing, and it's what the powers that be like, and that's how you get into the right journals, and you got to get into the right journals to get into the right universities, and you got to get into the right universities to get the whole system just goes on and on. Right.
That's invigorating. Right. That's exciting. It makes me want to do that.
Oh, does it? Yeah. Well, yeah. Notice that truth, the lies out, none of that ever really enters into the analysis, right? It's how do I model what I want to say? Just a little side note there for anybody who does enjoy the Austrian School of Economics. If you crack open Human Action, right, Ludwig von Mises, you'll notice that there's a startling absence of mathematical formulations and charts and graphs, and yet when these PhD students who go into the programs who think they're going to do Austrian stuff find out that as part of their dissertation, well, one of those chapters is going to have to be some math. It's like, really? Okay, so now we're just cutting off how much of the dissertation is truly Austrian in methodology. I get a little triggered about it. But it's the same principle, right? We're being... I loved it. The tortoise and the hare is exactly right, or the gold mindset of a goldfish. Next shiny thing, right? It's like, what's cool, what's interesting, what are the methods of the day, right? In economics, well, physics is using calculus, so we better do it too. It's like, ugh. And then in life insurance, well, the universal life guys, they show really nice illustrations, so we better try too. Let's try as hard as we can to be just like everybody else.
Oh my gosh.
What?
Well, why are you leaving the libertarians out?
Oh, we'll get to them. Come on now.
No, that brings me to, I'm glad you said that, because the only preparation I did for this episode was finding out this guy's name. All right. Because we all know who Dr. Seuss was, okay, and all the great, wonderful works that he did, his personal beliefs, set aside. The one book that I wanted to get the name of the character out of was Sneetches on the Beaches. All right, so the Sneetches, right? So there were Sneetches. They lived on beaches, and there were two types of Sneetches. One type had stars. They were the star belly Sneetches. The others were plain belly Sneetches. So the star belly Sneetches, bullied and wouldn't let the plain belly Sneetches participate in whatever activities they're doing. And they felt bad. Well, along comes the stranger. whose name is Sylvester McMonkey McBean.
Okay.
And he shows up and he says, well, I can solve your problems, you plain-bellied sneetches, for just a mere $10. And I think this book came out sometime in the 30s or 40s. So I'm just thinking, what was $10 in the 30s? What is that worth today? That's a lot of money. Okay. So for $10, the plain-bellied sneetches could have a star. So they could be like everybody else. So then everybody paid the stranger, the expert, the marketer, the salesperson,
the guru.
The guru.
The funnel expert.
For this star on their belly. So then before you know it, all the sneetches had stars on their bellies. And then some guy got a great idea and said, like, well, I don't want to be like everybody else. Then they paid the same guy to take the stars off of the sneetches, off of their belly. Right. So we go right back to, there are some with stars, some that are plain-bellied sneetches. And it speaks to the whole point, the life insurance industry, oh my gosh, we want to compete with the investment world. So let's come up with these god-awful products that were created and foisted on the unsuspecting American public. Equity indexed universal life. And I know they've dropped the E, now it's IUL. Now they're coming back and putting F on there, and they've already done that in the past. Fixed index universal life. We want to be like, the market, the stock market. They've had a hard time. The life insurance industry, specifically the mutual companies, they almost have gone through several identity crises. They're in the 80s and the 90s, they demutualized so they can become stock companies. Well, somebody got paid in all those demutualizations, and it wasn't, the policyholders did get paid, but the owners of the company got paid the most. And Nelson talks about universal life, one page in his book, Becoming Your Own Banker. My point is this: the life insurance companies, instead of embracing who they are and what they have, they try to be like Wall Street. They come out with variable universal life and all of these iterations, and they're just polluting. They have polluted, in my opinion, life insurance. Just typically, historically, whole life. Mutual insurance companies with whole life products. And instead of embracing that and educating their clients on the power of whole life insurance, they create all these other products. And then, and I know we spoke on this previously, it seems like we can't get off the topic of the infinite banking concept in life insurance. They come out with these indexed dividends. Some companies do, some companies don't. And I know all the agents and advisors listening, I understand that if you like the index and you and your client, y'all have decided that's best for, their solution, God bless you. Can I just get a dividend paid from a soundly run mutual company that historically has paid dividends for 100 or more years? What in the world is wrong with that?
And the fad nowadays is the life insurance companies want to play health insurance company. Right? Oh, we add long-term care riders, disability riders, which, by the way, you're paying for. And long-term care, just a little digression, is what's responsible, large part, for the oncoming demise of General Electric. But so the product itself is suspicious. But here, just like you said, the identity crisis in life insurance is these companies wanting to, our policies, they check all these boxes. We do everything. We want to be everything to everybody. Right.
And I have to say that the long-term care riders or extended care rider benefit, whatever they're named, they're just an accelerated benefit rider, right? That allows a policy owner to access with a cost. You're either paying a premium for that rider or you're paying an expense at the time of use, right? The consumer pays for everything, but they're nothing more than a variation of an accelerated benefit. There's an access to the cash value and or both the death benefit, right? whatever the triggers are, 2 out of 7 ADLs, activities of daily living, if I can't perform 2 of them, then that rider, that benefit may be activated. Whenever, and so I just want to say that they're never meant to replace long-term care insurance at all. They come with a premium. They come with a cost. Is it okay to have them? Yes, I use them all day long in our practice. So it's just an ability to access cash values. So if I back up a minute, so if I just go by typically structured life insurance, it may be a very long time before I have substantial cash values. Mm-hmm. Well, that life insurance would maybe benefit with that rider more so than an infinite banking structured policy, because there's so much cash value available early with an infinite banking construct. So I don't really know how beneficial that rider would be. It would appear to be more beneficial in the early years, right? But in the latter years, these infinite banking policies, they have an extreme amount of cash value.
Yeah.
Right. But then, and let me continue on to that. I think Penn Treaty was one of the first companies that came out with long-term care. We pay a premium. You pay a premium. There's
high premium.
Yeah, high premium. And there's an elimination period. If you have to go to a nursing home, home health, you have to be in there for a certain amount of time. That period, that elimination period, you're there before the benefit becomes available. It can have an inflation rider on there. There's all kinds of bells and whistles.
Sounds nice and simple, huh?
Yeah. And I believe they came out in the 80s, Penn Treaty. Now it may not be a place for this. However, you brought it up, so I'm going to keep going.
I noticed.
Yeah. All right. Penn Treaty comes out with the modern design of long-term care insurance. They mispriced the cost of medical care. Right? And
Imagine that.
Yeah. And they miscalculated the lapse ratio, how many people are going to let these policies go and how many people are going to retain these policies. Mm-hmm. Right. And so, of course, they were mispriced the premium as high as the premium was. Right. So they get into trouble. They go to the state and say, hey, we need a premium increase. The states continue to say, no, you can't have it. No, you can't have it. No, you can't have it. And so you take this company that finally, it's one of the first company that goes into liquidation from the guarantee associations. Right. And my point is I want to tie it together. So here, if you're a health insurance company, you have to pay into the guarantee association, right? If you're a life insurance company, you have to pay into the guarantee association. So the guarantee association is really a secondary guarantee behind these life insurance and health insurance and long-term care type products. Okay. Now this is recently, this is within the last 18 to 24 months that Penn Treaty has been liquidated. And now the guarantee association has to step in, right, and fulfill these guarantees. And so the guarantee associations have no money, right? The money comes from all the other insurance companies that are doing business, right? And my point is this. They're looking at the life insurance companies with these long-term care riders. Said, now look, you should participate in this guarantee association.
You're in the health insurance business.
Exactly. Pay up. Exactly. And the life insurance companies are like, no, we're life insurance companies. Oh, but you have a long-term care rider.
You want to have your cake and eat it too. That's what happens when you try to be everything for everybody. So let me back out of all this and go big picture. That. Yeah, so that's long-term. That's good. But there's a lot behind long-term care we could get into. That's one example. The indexing of the dividend, that option, that's one example. So I'm going to take it back to Volkswagen. Okay. I said, well, I like the 2017 model, right? That they did a redesign in 2018, and I don't know, somebody at Volkswagen got enamored with the aesthetic appeal of a minivan or something. I don't know. But you get in these cars and a lot of the appeal is gone. One example is the use of essentially fake aesthetics, right? So if you look at the back of, I think it's a 2018, you look at the back of new model vehicles especially, you might see maybe a little decal at the back bumper where you might expect the exhaust to be. right? The exhaust pipes, the exhaust tips. Well, it turns out most cars actually funnel the exhaust directly onto the road underneath the vehicle. The exhaust tips are fake. They're not actually real, right? But sure enough, it costs money to put them on there, right? Someone's paying for that, right? The time to pay the engineer to design that, to get the parts and all that. This is just one example. There's more, right? Another one, because engines now are so quiet, when you change lanes, right, or when you rev up the engine, right, the auto manufacturers want the driver to, quote unquote, hear the engine. So they'll add software to play engine noise through the speakers.
Are you serious?
I am dead serious.
Are these a German engineers?
It's a German. It's called Soundaktur, I think, is the German.
God.
But they're in all the different new cars, right? An engine noise, so that people feel like they're driving a car, right? it's just like Nelson used to say. You know, if you created the problem and now you're creating a solution or an exception to the problem, don't you think you're being manipulated? Why not just give me a car I can drive? Well, in the car world, it's because they're trying to please consumers and the government at the same time.
They're trying to present a car that you'll buy.
Yeah, they're trying to appeal to me, to my relatively low information understanding. They're trying to appeal to that.
Sure.
So I get it. They're caught between a rock and a hard place. But same principles applying to these life insurance companies. They're throwing on these fancy gimmicks that cost more, that do nothing to contribute to the viability or the integrity or the purpose of the product, right? And we're paying for it. We're paying for it, and there's going to be unintended consequences, just like you say. I think that's the purpose there, is that, you know, you want to pretend to be a health insurance company. Okay, that's a pretty politically popular topic.
Oh my gosh.
So you want to go play in that sandbox? I don't. You know, I'd prefer life insurance be as boring as whoever you can think of, right? I wish I could think of a personality. Who's super boring? Someone who just, just as boring as your conventional economics professor, right?
Wait a minute, a government clerk.
There you go. I want nothing. I want the opposite
At the voter ID
of the rabbit that's running down the street that's got all the new fancy things, right? I want the opposite of all the fake crap on cars, right? I want these German manufacturers. One of them used to have the slogan. It's like a true driving machine or something. Maybe it was Audi. I forget. Like, that's what I want. If I go to get a car and I like driving, I just want a driving machine. Just give me that. Do that well. You know, I know you're not Apple. I don't need 8 gigabytes of RAM in my computer to search the internet and watch YouTube while I'm driving down the street, right? If I own dividend-paying whole life insurance and I have a properly structured policy with substantial cash value so that I can finance whatever purchase I might need to make down the road, I don't need these fancy, more expensive, gimmicky riders that are allegedly going to help me do that better. I don't need it. You know, I need simplicity. I need a well-run mutual company. I need an agent who is an expert in their business and knows the product better than I do, so that I can answer the specific questions I have because I did my research and I know the things that need to be addressed. And then once I'm in force, I want an independent, mutually beneficial relationship with my agent. I don't want to be dependent on the agent. And this is why I'm saying this, is because what we've talked about over about the last hour here, the consequence of it is if you make an uninformed decision based on the numbers because someone sold you from the illustration, you're going to find yourself in a position 8 months, 10 months, a year, 2 years down the line where it's, why am I doing this again, right? And so because the proper educational foundation wasn't laid, I as a consumer am now dependent upon the agent to go back again and again, explain so that I can properly manage my policy, right? That's what happens. That's the consequence, right? So I get this from agents, right? Because we do some agent trainings and that kind of thing and try to help people out. And you know, there's kind of this perceived distinction of, well, do I want to focus on the marketing and the quick sale and the ostensibly higher income? Or do I want to set all that aside and just focus on the education and the value, right? Do I want a quick marketing-based sale, or do I want a long-term value-based sale? And am I going to make more money in the quick turnaround type of business, or am I going to do better as an agent in the value education style business? And the perception is, well, if I can get the sale now, if I can get the check written, I'm going to make more money this month, this year, next year, in these 5 years, right? So my point was to somebody, that is a false dichotomy, right? Eventually, it's going to dawn on somebody that the practice of getting business in force based on selling from the illustration produces suboptimal, low quality business. And what I mean by that is the individual who gets frustrated in 1, 2, 5 years down the line is more likely to say, I quit. What is this? I'm fresh. I'm done, right? You go through that process once or twice. I got to be reminded. I'm getting frustrated. I'm blowing up forums, hitting the caps lock key. What did I get sold? I'm a refugee. I'm going to other agents. This is what's happening. And it's happening right now. It's happening right now. We see it. I see it all the time. And to the point where it's becoming, we have to tamper it down. I got to spend less time because it's too much. I don't have that kind of time. So we want to avoid that. It's actually in the individual's interest. It's in the agent's interest to put the value first. That person's going to love you. My clients are my people, They know they could, I'm going to, send the brother, the father, the son-in-law, they become referral sources, right? That can only happen if the relationship, if the value comes first. So it doesn't, my point is the sell from the illustration, short-term minded thinking, it doesn't even work out on its own terms.
For anyone.
No, for no one.
For the agent, the consumer, and the life insurance company. But here, let me add to that because I completely agree. So I appreciate on one aspect all of the noise that is out there. Even in the infinite banking world, because that a certain consumer is attracted to that. Maybe it's because they don't have time, they don't take the time to do the research, but it exists, and I appreciate and I recognize that it's out there. I appreciate that it's out there. It's good in one way that I feel like we engage with educated clients. Mm-hmm. Okay. I'm not saying that they know everything, but they can sure enough separate the wheat from the chaff. And the result of that is a beneficial, voluntary relationship. It's not dependent. Our clients are not dependent upon us. We're very dependable. They're very dependable, but they're not dependent upon us. We do provide excellent service. But it leads me to in the big wide world on social media, I don't know how many times I've heard or seen, from marketers or salespeople, which, I'm a salesman, I'm a father, I'm an uncle, I'm a brother, I'm a son, I'm much more than a salesperson. But, if you're in the life insurance industry, you're categorized as, oh, you're a salesman and you're, dependent upon commissions and whatever. No, thank God I'm dependent upon my God. I am not dependent upon clients or commissions, right? Okay. But whenever I see, and I've seen it several times in various places, we're not going to ask you to read a bunch of books. We don't want to sell you a bunch of books. We're not going to make you buy a bunch of books. We're not going to ask you to read anything.
We simplify it.
Well, that's a tragedy, and I understand we all have limited time. Some of us like to read, some of us don't like to read. But I think a foundational education is some reading is required.
Yeah.
Some reading some level of reading is required. And the more reading you do of the right things, the better off you'll be. You should vet this idea, whether it's good for you and your family or not. Mm-hmm. And so it takes a certain amount of research. And some of that research is reading. So when I hear somebody say, and verbally or in print, that we're not going to make you buy or we're not going to make you read a bunch of books. It's just like, my God, why don't you pick up a book and read it? Why don't you educate yourself before you present yourself as an educator? Mm-hmm. Am I missing something there?
No.
Is it just because I like to read, I think everybody should read? No, you shouldn't read everything or very much of what you don't want to read, but if you have an interest in something, you should read. And look, I know this is a setup, a prop. The Law, Frederick Bastiat, 1850 France. See how thin that book is? I mean, oh my gosh, you could read this on an airplane ride. You could probably find this on audio online.
I'm sure.
I don't know. But this should be required reading. Very thin. If you live in the free world or you don't live in the free world, you should read this book. What's going on today is nothing new. And I digress. That's just one thing that's on the recommended reading list. If you're a reader or even a listener, you should look it up. The Law, Frederick Bastiat.
Oh, look, I'll say this on that point because it dawned on me, right? Back to the car example. This has been my life for the last week.
I know more about Volkswagens than I really wanted to know.
There's more. So I kind of, it's like, well, how do I, what's good, what's important to me is, compared to what? How do we compare these things to? So I'm thinking about, I drove a Honda, so I'm thinking about the Japanese cars and I'm thinking about the German thing. And it's like, well, wait. So I get into this Volkswagen that I'm looking at, 2017 Tiguan. And I'm driving around and I'm getting like giddy. It's like, this is a $15,000 car. Like, feels like a premium experience, a really wonderful driving experience. We should get a sponsor for this video or something.
No, thank you.
I enjoyed the drive tremendously, and I'm like, what the heck? Like, do people not try these cars? Like, what's going on? And then it dawned on me. It's like, well, to maintain these vehicles, you got to do some extra studying. You got to know the kind of oil you need, the kind of gas you need. You got to stick to the maintenance schedule.
Now, look, do you have a problem with that? If you're going to put $15,000 of your dollars in there, don't you want to know that?
Absolutely.
Or don't you want to have an association with someone who does?
That would be top of the list, right?
Yeah,
in the car business, it just so happens that doesn't exist. So I got to go educate myself, right? All I want, and that's really all I want, is that positive driving experience. And I don't get the information from the agent. But I'm thinking like, well then, why is the driving experience in these Japanese cars so awful? And I'm not knocking on if you own a Japanese car.
Oh, not owning it, but.
Right. I mean, I get it. There's value, there's utility. They're more reliable. They hold their resale value. I get it.
Compared to what?
Yeah, right. So there are reasons. I'm not knocking on just for the sake of it. But as far as the driving experience is concerned, I'm like, why haven't I heard about this? Like, someone should have told me by now that this is awesome.
Well, because you're 6'5" and it's a Volkswagen.
And I actually fit better in the Volkswagen than I do in the Toyota ones.
Have you driven the BMW?
No, because I don't want to get attached.
I drive Chevrolets. So I'm just saying, Ford, Dodge,
government motors. Okay, so just throw me off here.
They had a $14 billion bailout. GMAC. That's now Ally Bank. $14 billion. Sorry.
Yeah, I mean, taxes are high enough, okay?
I don't want to throw you off.
Right. So,
and I'm just talking about GMAC. I'm not talking about General Motors. All right, I'm talking about the financing arm of General Motors prior to the meltdown, which is now Ally Bank.
Right.
$14 billion. That's a lot of dang money. Yeah. And it was yours. Part of it.
Part of yours. Yeah. Part of it printed out of thin air. But okay, let me finish this. Okay. So I'm like, why is it the case? Why haven't I heard about it? People don't ask about IBC. Why haven't I heard about IBC yet? Sure. Right? Same principle. Part of it is that the consumer has forfeited that desire, right? They have, as we say in IBC in finance, they have abdicated the responsibility to educate themselves about the banking function, right? And a lot of consumers of automobiles have abdicated the responsibility of understanding the vehicle. Look, I'm first among them, right? I'm like, when I first had my car, it's like, how often I got to change the oil? Like, what's that even mean? And how often do I have to do
what's
it?
What's that even mean?
Like, I put gas in it. Oil. Shouldn't it work? Yeah. So look, I've been there. I'm right there with you, okay? But I have got an education over this last week about how much I have missed in the financial world.
Did you have time to talk to anybody about the infinite banking concept this week with all that research you're doing on Volkswagens? It's just a side question.
Would you believe it? I actually have.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah. There's too much going on. But anyway, so I think the reason is that we don't want to know. The American consumer doesn't want to know. It's why the CR-V sells like 8 times as many units as the Tiguan, right?
Are they in the same price range?
No, Japanese is more expensive up front. Yeah. A used Japanese vehicle, similar class, similar mileage, similar maintenance history, will be $2,000 to $5,000 more. Yeah. So you pay for it up front, right? Look, you're going to pay for it either way.
Yeah, consumer pays for everything.
Consumer, you're going to. I'm going to pay in maintenance and repairs, right? And the Japanese consumer is going to pay up front.
I have no notes about
retail.
Japanese consumers here. Don't point at my notes.
Consumers of Japanese vehicles.
Sure.
So that's what's going on out in the big world, is that a lot of consumers of financial products, they want it easy. They want the Honda Toyota model, right? I want to drive it and do as little as possible to get as much value as possible.
Sure.
As opposed to, I want the optimal experience. I want to maximize my time on this planet. I want to maximize what God's given me. Therefore, I'm going to put in the time, effort, and research to make sure that I'm prepared to do that, so that I'm not in the position of, like myself a year and a half ago, where I'm dependent upon the mechanic. I'm dependent upon the dealer to tell me what's going on in my car. Now I have to trust them. Right.
How much did you spend on your Honda over this time period, this last year and a half?
Oh my gosh, we don't have to talk to you. It's been a positive day so far. Let's not make it worse.
Look, let me say that I agree that the consumer, all of us have abdicated the banking function. Right, we've all abdicated the banking function at some level, and that's exactly what Nelson addresses. That the banker is making out like a bandit. And now look, in this construct of noise. That's coddled. That Wall Street has no desire, the big banks have no desire for you to take control of the banking function in your life.
Absolutely not. Assets under management. Yep. My assets under their management.
So there is this construct that is completely happy that we've abdicated our responsibility in whatever area,
Absolutely.
The automobile industry is Honda has to be completely giddy that the consumer just wants, the low cost, high maintenance, apparently low cost, low maintenance, not high maintenance. And the Honda outruns them.
Or the Range Rover mechanic.
Oh my gosh.
You get in the car, you get a mile over the warranty, a light breaks. Oh, that'll be a $2,500 fix.
I don't know.
Mechanics will eat that up all day.
I don't drive them either, but I have heard, the stories about Jaguars. I mean,
yes,
same owner.
But hey, it's the shiny thing. Everybody else has one.
Well, when we go, I don't want to jump over this either. If we back up a little bit, let's look at the education, or consider the education of the average agent or advisor. The life insurance industry does not train agents or advisors in this banking concept. I wonder why? Because the life insurance industry didn't come up with this idea, right? Even though they have the stellar product that has all of the requirements, all of the characteristics to meet the requirements of a banking entity.
Since day one.
Oh.
Premium, death benefit, cash value policy loans. Older than the country. What else do you need?
The education on how to use
dividend.
it.
Sorry, number 5.
Education on to be aware of that, and then learn. Oh my gosh! You mean I can do this? So it's exposure and education.
That's exactly how I feel in the Volkswagen. I can drive this car.
I'm telling you. Now let's talk about the education for the agent. Right? I mean, they're trained to sell. The investment advisor is trained to sell or acquire assets under management. That's how they get paid, right? And every worker is worthy of this hire.
Hey, and management is breathing down their neck.
Oh my gosh, need numbers. I don't need a story. How many people did you talk to? And that's kind of why I made the comment earlier. Did you have time to talk to anybody? I was like foreshadowing or just bird dogging this guy. How many people did you talk to? It's all in jest.
Right.
All right. From a throwback to the financial industry. How many people did you talk to today? How many people did you talk to this week?
Yes.
Okay. So how can an advisor, how can an agent get educated? The same way the consumer can. Read, discover who Nelson Nash was, his works, and maybe even what influences he had on his life. All right, that would be a great place to start. And I understand that in the world of marketing and digital automation, everybody's trying to monetize whatever it is they're doing and creating all of these machinations of marketing. And it's like where the consumer is beat to death with marketing. And it's...
I feel for them. I really do.
Me included. I mean, it wears me out. Mm-hmm. And who has time? So... Okay, let's read a book. So, what are you saying then that education, encouraging education, isn't that the same as marketing? Isn't that a form of marketing? Right? It's like, here you need to learn this, or you should consider this, and I create a bunch of funnels, tripwires, paywalls, and here's some information. If you engage, then we'll expose you to some more information. And if you engage and, you get to the ultimate, this was free in the beginning, right? Click here, it's free. And we're going to stalk you and we're going to track you. But the end result is, for, $35,000, you get to the inner circle and have all the secret knowledge, the vaults that go back to the ancient Dead Sea Scrolls. And it'll wear you out.
It's locked up. Now, why would you lock up the truth? Ooh.
Good question.
I'm glad you brought up education for other agents, because what has really depressed me recently, and I'll start this with my own little story. I came into the business, just like you said, if you're an agent or even a consumer, where would you start? Well, read the book, right? So I'm in a master's program in economics at the time. I meet Nelson for the first time and become a consumer. I implement infinite banking before I was an agent. Right, and then I
didn't you tell your agent
had to train my agent.
He had to instruct his agent, a big, old
major firm.
Everybody would know their name. Mm-hmm. He had to instruct his agent on how to construct a policy.
Yeah, and I didn't know what I was doing. You know what I did? I went to equipment financing in Part 4, and I said, by gosh, $15,000 is 37.5% of $40,000. In my policy, I want 37.5% of my premium to go to the base. I want the rest.
The base is...
Base premium.
Base premium is, in the infinite banking world, is the premium paid for a whole life policy. Mm-hmm. The paid up additions, PUA, is a rider to the whole life policy that allows you to put additional premium into, and it creates early cash value, early in year 1, 2, 3, and 4, early cash values, because there is very little or no cash value in all whole life insurance in the first 2 years.
Under a conventional structure, yes.
Right.
So I had to train my own agent. But look, point being, I became a consumer. And I became really an enthusiast. I became very, like with this Volkswagen thing, I became really interested, And so I go into the first PhD program that I was in applied economics,
You're
right?
Still enthusiastic?
Yeah, just in a different program. I started in my first PhD program, went through it, didn't go well. I mean, I did fine, but didn't like certain things about it. Yep. So I decided that, well, look, I'm already enthusiastic about this thing. I find myself doing additional research because I enjoy it. I find myself telling people what I'm doing. That seems like a natural transition. And so fast forward a few years later, here we are, right? Now, so I remember, and let me back up a second. Before I got really into IBC, like I mentioned, went to work for one of these big firms, one of these captive companies with the training programs.
After you trained your agent.
Yeah, exactly. Right, exactly. So I lasted a year in the PhD program, learned my lesson. I only lasted 2 weeks at the captive agency, right? And said, bye, see you later. Good luck, best of luck, but no thank you, right? Okay, so...
Wait, Ryan, where are you going?
So I leave a paid PhD program, I'm paid to be there. I'm being paid to go to class. Leave that, give that up to get in the world of some young man, single, right? In the world of finance, no previous education, no previous training at the industry level, right? But I had lots of education in Austrian economics, right? And then, of course, we formed our relationship, learned everything else that there was to know about life insurance and the industry. But I recall the feeling of sitting in that training room at the captive company, just feeling beat down, So I see these other young men
yes,
who are just getting into finance. Finance is hard enough. right? If you go in, especially like me, I moved all over the country for college. I did not have a geographically concentrated center of influence, right? I didn't have a lot of people nearby I knew that I could sell to, right? So not only did I not have the network, I didn't have the reputation, I didn't have the name, I didn't have anything that you would normally need to facilitate a typical financial sales transaction, right? So it's hard enough. Well, then I decided to get into infinite banking. And not only get into infinite banking, but I was so inspired by Nelson, I specialize in it. I'm only going to do it. Okay, finance is hard enough. No reputation, no center of influence. Okay, well now you're going to concentrate in the infinite banking concept. The what? What's that? All right, so I'm going to specialize. I'm going to only do something that almost nobody's ever heard of. Look, the deck is stacked against me, right? I'm getting beat down.
Yeah.
And so I know that's what's going on for the other young men and women, but let's be honest, most agents are men. Other young men who get into the business.
Some of the best ones are women, though.
Who are...
I'm just saying.
Okay. Who are eager, maybe even desperate, craving just some pennies, the scraps from the table, right? A little income to pay the bills, to make sure the credit card.
Well, don't jump over the desire, because I don't subscribe to the idea that everybody in the financial world is only in it for pennies or income or commissions or fees.
I'm not saying, angelic intentions.
Yeah, I just want to recognize that most people in the financial world really want to bring service and value to their customers.
But it's also a struggle. It's a legitimate struggle. Someone new in the business, I don't care how they look, the smile they're putting on their face, it's a struggle, plain and simple, right? And so then you have the recruiters.
Oh my gosh.
Who know this very well. They understand how much of your business is actually going in force. They know how much money you're actually making. And so, by gosh, they have a sales system for you, right? And it's digital. It's online. It's automated. You don't have to, we, again, appeal to the low information sale again, right? It's easy. We make it simple for you.
It's a numbers game anyway. You knock on 100 doors, somebody's going to buy.
Every single spammy garbage email I get from these recruiters, hey, stop sending them. I don't need them. Thanks. I'm good. We're happy, right? Every single email, we make it easy. Easiest referral service on the market. Right? At a low cost. Oh, you mentioned an organization earlier.
I did?
Yep.
I feel like you're putting me on the spot.
No, a particular organization earlier, and I get an email from this organization advertising the services of an individual who collects articles that can then be white labeled, right? So an agent can put their name and their banner and their brand on this email, right? But the content has been generated by this third-party service. But look, it's easy. We make it easy for you. Not only is it affordable, it takes not a lot of time, but it takes even less money, or something like that. Again, appealing to the low information thing, so I'm just in love, right?
So wait, if you subscribe to that service or idea, then your clients are going to receive third-party information that every other agent or advisor who subscribes to that, they're all going to read the same thing, right? But your name will be on one and their name will be on another. And it sounds to me like a sneech. It's like everybody's got a star.
Absolutely the case. I got to have the fake exhaust tips. Yeah. I need my I need my speakers to make noise because I can't hear the engine.
I did not know that.
It's it's sad.
Well, here, let me make a side comment. I live in Texas. You live in Texas, and I just had to renew my license. And I got to say, I traveled out of the country, okay, with an expired driver's license, and it was not caught. I went through security, TSA, and 2 or 3 or 4 airports. I come back.
This is true. I've been there for some of these.
Then I happened to go to another vendor of certain products, particular products where they check your ID and, no, I don't drink, I don't do drugs, I don't do any of that. And they said, oh, your ID's expired. Well, by that time I had already went and got renewal. So I had the paper. I didn't have the hard copy driver's license. So I had the renewal proof. And I just want to say that when I renewed my driver's license in Texas, because of the Voter ID Act, I get I have a gold star on my driver's license now. And I've just,
do you feel special? Do you feel more American?
I'm afraid next time they're going to have me roll up my sleeve and put the star here or make me wear a star on my jacket.
Oh, we'll just inject it in you. You won't feel a thing. Just
oh my gosh.
Yeah. Scan me on the way in.
And maybe your state does something. Maybe you get a blue star, a red star, just so we all have stars and we're all the same.
Everyone's going to have a star.
Okay. Sorry, I just had to share that. It bothers the fire out of me that, the gold star. I mean, I didn't want the gold star. I may not even want to vote. I don't know. But if I did, do I have to have a gold star? Can I just be a U.S. citizen?
So I feel bad for these young guys who are getting in, and I get not a lot of agents in the infinite banking world are on YouTube in the way we are, right? We're probably a little more visible than many, and so we get some of the inquiries, and I get some from people, and some of them are young men who are just getting in, but others are just agents who are or individuals, potential agents who are coming from other industries, and they're just trying to learn and trying to figure all this out. Well, they're trying to figure all this out amongst the noise.
Absolutely.
Amongst the forums, amongst the cap lock key crushers, right? That's the environment in which they're trying to, and I feel bad for them. And so I understand the appeal of the quick sale mentality. What I want to communicate is that it doesn't work. Right? If the relevant time frame is your entire life, your entire working life, which it is, which it ought to be, if you're serious about being in this industry, then the quick sell from the illustration mentality, in my opinion, doesn't work.
Well, no, it works for somebody, or they wouldn't keep doing it.
It works in the short term. So yes. You're right. I should be more specific. It lacks the durability.
No question.
That you could have if you took a different approach. And I think this is really why I wanted to talk about all this today and why we're going at it.
Okay.
Well, no. There could be more. But the reason I want to talk about it is, one, nobody else is, right? And two, consumers of financial products and the providers of it, I don't think know or recognize or see that this structure, this form, this style of marketing, this way, this culture really is the sales culture. I don't think they're aware that it is distinct, it's particular, it's got certain features, and it's out there. And consequently, because they don't know that's there, because they don't know that that's the construct,
don't recognize that.
They don't see the construct, how could we ever expect them to know the alternative?
Yeah,
right? Or to even put it in those words, right? And so I think it's, ain't nobody. I said it before on previous episodes. Ain't nobody else talking about this.
Ain't nobody else. I appreciate your language getting closer to my language. So your point is?
My point is that there is a particular kind of sales culture out there that appeals to the low information consumer, and it happens when the agent is a consumer of marketing services. It happens when the individual is a consumer of financial services. It happens when the individual is a consumer of automobiles. It happens across the board, right? It is a problem across the board. Bringing it back to that car example, there's one dealership. I live in Fort Worth, Texas. There's one dealership, Autobahn, Fort Worth. Oh my gosh, it's like going to the spa. I mean, I walk up, if you're in Texas, you should shop there. I walk up and say, I saw online you got a 2017 Tiguan used, or it was a 2016, 30,000 miles, I think it was, I want to test drive that. He goes and checks. Oh, they don't have it, but we've got another one. Would you like to drive it? Sure thing. Okay, I'll be right back. Agent walks off, salesperson walks off, comes back with the keys, hands me the keys. Have fun, see you later. Walks off. I went on a pleasant half-hour test drive by myself, called my dad, to check out the Bluetooth, see if it worked, right? So I could have driven it to an independent mechanic, could have had it looked at, so pleasant. Went back the second time to a different person at the same place. Happened again. Oh my gosh. All they want me to do is those things, in this case a test drive, so that I can have the most information possible, so that I can know whether this is the sale, whether this is the transaction I really want to be a part of. They're not trying to talk me into anything. There's not a sales funnel. I'm not going to get a newsletter, right? Which is really sales copy with different words. I'm not going to be a part of a program. You know, I can text and call my salesperson there. It's just another world. And it's the same distinction in the financial world, right?
Well, tell us about the other facility that you went to.
Oh, okay. So I have a Honda, and I go to the Honda dealer.
Don't name them.
Yeah, I won't name which one, but I do live in Fort Worth. Go to the Honda dealer. Got a recall repair on my Honda. Take it to the service area. I walk over to the pre-owned area that looks like a Russian communist bloc, but all right. So tells you something about where they're investing resources, but that's fine. Walk in.
Marketing is expensive.
As opposed to the luxurious, wonderful, effortless experience I had at Autobahn at this other as yet unnamed dealership, I see a Mazda CX-5 on the patio. It's the comparable class to the one I'm interested in. Takes him 20 minutes to get permission so that we can drive the car. He has to, heaven forbid, drive it off the curb where it's being advertised, right? And before my foot ever touches the gas pedal, I'm asked in 4 or 5 different ways, what can we do today? What can we entice you to do today? What are you looking to get done today, right? Today and entice. You're noticing a theme, right? Short-term minded, do it now so I can get paid, right? Okay, so I finally tell the guy, listen, I haven't put my foot on the gas pedal yet. I don't know if I'm interested in this vehicle. He tells me, no, you don't understand what I'm asking. And so I lost my temper for a bit and said things I won't say here, but very plainly said, no, thank you. Out of the vehicle, complained to management. The manager says, well, can I have someone else help you? Heaven forbid. No, please no. I need to get as far away from here as possible. If I ever buy a Honda again, it sure as hell will not be here, right? Totally turned me off. And this is exactly
what he was asking.
This tone of voice, even if the words I'm saying don't make sense, but even if that's the case, the tone of voice should tell you, right? Awful experience. And this is the same tone. It's the same emotional cadence you hear from these refugee clients who come from other agents who have been sold something on low information because they dazzled them with an illustration. Mm-hmm. And I get a little irritated by that because the man whose lapel this pin came off of, this is his baby. This is his life's work, and it's why we got into it. And so when I see this going on out there, you know, that's why we have to take the assume angelic intentions thing and step back and be like, look, maybe it's just that we don't know. And to be fair, I didn't know, right? I wasn't aware that this is how car sales work or how life insurance or financial product sales work, right? But as we learn it, as we become aware, it's hard not to become a little irritated. And this is, you know, the viewer should be able to notice a certain way we interact and talk about things, right? Should be pretty clear. Should be a pretty distinct contrast to the way that the promoters, going back to what you said at the very beginning, the difference between promotion and attraction, right? Our view, we want to attract the people who want to adopt this educational philosophy, who want to reclaim financial responsibility over the banking function, all that. We want to attract that. And if you're not interested, fine. I mean, go on, right? There's plenty of promoters out there who would be happy to talk you into something, right? I'm not interested.
It's really good.
Yeah, I'm not interested. And what I'm really not interested in is you getting talked into something and then 5 years down the line deciding that you've been scammed by somebody related to the Nelson Nash Institute and therefore everybody associated with that organization must not be worth their salt. And not only that, I'm pissed off. I'm going to tell people about it. Well, I might call a commissioner. Who knows what I might do? I'm pissed off. I might sue somebody. Who are they going to sue? They're going to sue the carrier with billions of dollars under management? Yes. Or are they going to sue you?
Yes.
Everybody in sight, right? Everybody. The real question is, how much money can the lawyer make? That'll determine just how many people we sue, right?
Well, you've heard.
Why would I want to end up in that situation? No, thank you. No, thank you.
You've heard the joke about the little town that had a lawyer in it, and he was going broke.
No.
Right. Until the second lawyer moved to town, and then they both got rich. Well, listen, aren't they all the same? You're talking about the infinite banking concept. You've mentioned the Nelson
I'm so
Nash
glad you
Institute.
said that.
Aren't they all the same? Can I just call
they?
3 or 4 and get illustrations from, and then,
I had to inhale and exhale. I had to count when I heard this. The reason I'm responding in this way is what he just said is what I've had an individual tell me, right? And I had asked already, had you read the book? And he said no. So I know where he is. He's just starting his educational process. Mm-hmm. So I'm not mad at him at all. Don't get me wrong. Not. But one of his questions was, well, aren't you guys all the same? Can I just call any one of you?
I've lived my whole life to be like everybody else. I'm finally a Sneetch. I have a star.
Right. I'm so glad you recognized it. No, we are not. And we should say this, these pins are associated with a certain organization, and you have a number of organizational affiliations, and we are a part of a lot of different causes and things we support, but one should not get the impression that we endorse anybody else. It's not the case, right? We are not all the same. And I know so because those refugee clients send me the illustrations that come out of these other systems, and I'm like, yeah, well, where do we begin? And so no, to be very clear, we are not all the same. We have different marketing perspectives. We have different educational perspectives. We have different philosophies on policy design. We have different philosophies about things like recognition policy. I mean, we have a whole podcast dedicated to fleshing out the things that we think matter that are distinct from the rest of the agent and the financial sales advisory world, right? So no, we are not all the same. Nor should one want to be, right? That's really the point with I like that, the story of the stars, the Sneetches.
It's true. I mean, ancient Greece. I mean, the tortoise and the hare. All right, so I've always known that I'm different. This confirmation, in the financial world that I'm not like everybody, from the refugees, the orphans, and not even from the general public, but from, you just go to any event. There's lots of events in the financial world for the financial advisor, the agent, the gurus, I continually get confirmation that I'm not like them.
Absolutely.
In the big wide world, it's like, anyway.
And I should say this too. We don't want everybody to be like us.
No.
I think I said in the previous episode, keep on selling from those illustrations. Keep sending out your reduced paid up, limited pay policies that you pretend are better than a legitimate, bona fide, dividend paying whole life policy that'll accept premium over the course of one's natural life. Keep at it. So maybe that's for somebody. Maybe it is.
Could be a place.
Could be a place
for that. Yeah. And, while we're
the Japanese cars sell pretty good, so someone's buying them. There's a place for them.
That's right. And there's a place for proper engineering too. It's like, and I'm not an engineer, but or overly technical. But anyway,
that's exactly, and neither am I. Right. And I don't want to be one. Right? I'm in the financial services, but I do IBC, end period, done. I don't have any plans to become a car salesman or a mechanic. I don't want to have to know everything about the engine, right? But I want to know enough. I want to know the essentials. I want to know what I need to know to be confident that I can maintain my vehicle the way I want, so I don't have to be dependent on anybody.
Ooh,
and I can
independent.
I can get the most out of life, right? The most out of my driving experience. I like driving. I spend a lot of time in the car. You're going to finance a lot of purchases. You're going to spend a lot of time and a lot of effort and energy deciding how to pay for things that you're going to pay for anyway, right? This is a big part of life. Look, I'm talking about a $15,000 car, right? People put that much money into a policy in 1 year. People put triple, quadruple, move the decimal place whichever way you want, right? People put a lot of money into these policies, as they should. You can't have too much capital, right? Mm-hmm. So if it is the case that you should want to know something about your car, well, by goodness, you should scale that up, multiply it times 10. I mean, 10x it, do something to it so that you can understand the gravity of these decisions. And one other thing about this car thing, I can touch and feel the car.
Sure.
I can get in it. I can drive it.
You smell it.
I can
feel the leather.
Yeah, I've got senses.
You can hear the engine through the speakers.
I can hear the engine. I could, by goodness, turn that damn speaker off and hear the
squeal the tires throwing roll.
Hear that little.
You can drift.
Yeah, all of that. Right. I can enjoy the car physically with my senses.
Attract all the pretty young ladies that want to ride with you.
Yeah, and then so here's my life insurance policy. What am I going to do with it? Throw it, hit somebody with it. It's like, the policy, the document itself just enumerates what the real asset is. Underneath this paper is a relationship, a contractual relationship that this contract is just here to enforce, right? I'm buying something abstract. I'm buying a relationship with the company, right? Namely, I'm a member, dividend paying whole life, sold from a mutual company. I'm a member of the company. I'm part owner of the company. I have membership rights, and I'm a consumer. I'm a policy owner, right? I can't interact with it the way I can physically with the car.
Right. The policy's tangible.
Right.
All of these other things.
Intangible, conceptual, right? Yeah. And so I get it. We want something tangible. I want to be able to see it. I want to see and feel and touch and all that. At the end of the day, a life insurance policy is fundamentally an abstract idea, right? There is a contract, it's personal property, no question, but it's an idea. You've got to understand the concept. So look, if it's hard enough in the car world to figure out what you want to drive and what you need and what's reliable and all this and what suits your preferences, it's hard enough with something you can touch and feel.
Yeah.
By gosh, it's going to be worse with something totally abstract. All the more important, therefore, to do the education, to make sure the foundation is laid. And whose responsibility is that? Well, it's the individual's responsibility to get the education. It is the agent and the advisor's responsibility to provide it.
Or at least point the way to where it can be found. Right, but I don't want to read books. I don't want to sell, I don't want to have to buy books. And then that's just an eye roll to me. I understand if you don't like to read, there's tons and tons of things that are available in audio and video, but you should read fundamentally The Becoming Your Own Banker by R. Nelson Nash. If you haven't read that book, you don't have a solid foundation, and nor can you have a solid foundation.
Look, and go to the source.
Concept.
Go to the source. Go to the man who created it. I told the Volkswagen girls, like, there's a model of this car, I know there is, where the front passenger seat will fold down totally flat. I want that, right? I want that. I want a nice little flat surface next to me to use as a table or whatever. I want that. And she's like, well, I just talked to the person on the other office, and she's been here 10 years, and she used to own one of the 2016, and she said that they don't have it. Right, well, I'm getting that information from a secondhand source, right? Okay, so I go online, pull up the dealer spec sheet. Sure enough, 2017 Tiguan Model S, front folding passenger seat, standard on all models, or on all of, for every one of the units produced that is that Model S, I think it was. And so sure enough, because I went to the source, I had the accurate information. Whereas had I gone off of what I learned secondhand from the person who said it confidently, it came from someone who's been here 10 years. Oh, is that an appeal to authority? Okay. Well, red flag number one, it might be true. She could be right. Well, and so of course the question comes, well, so what could we do today? Yeah. Right? And then here, let me introduce you to my sales manager so he can offer you $500 off. It's like, really? They offered me $500 for my car. I'm like, you're going to add $500 onto it and you think that's going to make it no. But the whole system, right?
You have a Honda, and so, $500.
Yeah. What? Right. What can we do for you today? And I was like, nothing until I have the opportunity to verify from the source what I've heard from this secondhand source. Mm-hmm. Because when that secondhand source told me something, it was based off of what they heard from somebody else. It wasn't based on the original source, right? So this is pervasive in the industry. People telling things to individuals, of course, well-intended, but hey, what can we do to entice you to make a deal today? But hey, totally angelic intentions, said confidently from a potential source of authority, without ever referencing the original source. So there's something else that ticks me off, is discussion of infinite banking without ever one mention of Nelson Nash. I mean, is it stuck in your throat? Get it out. If it's there. If it's there. If it's there,
yeah. If it is there, it may be just a cursory reference. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I've learned, and Nelson said it, originally is where I heard it, that most people's understanding of life insurance is based on someone else's misconception. And that's just life insurance. He didn't say, the understanding of the infinite banking concept. No, we're just talking about life insurance. Most people's understanding of life insurance is based on someone else's misconception. Now, how solid is that?
Gosh, you could blow that up. Most people's understanding of high information items, be it life insurance, be it a German car as opposed to a Japanese one, most people's understanding of things that require a lot of information in order to fully optimize and implement, most of what they know is based off of, most of what they know, scare quotes, is based off of what they've heard from somebody else in their system of misconceptions.
Yep. So don't be that person. Do the research yourself, right? Do the vetting yourself. Find out if this is worth implementing for you and your family. This is a long podcast.
This might be a record. Let me see what this little timer says. Oh, no. Why break it up?
I don't know.
Yeah, hour and 40.
Yeah. All right.
That's our New Year's special. All right. Welcome 2020.
Brevity is a virtue. I'm just saying.
We're brief. We were just brief about a lot.
All right. Thanks for listening. Yep. I had fun. Really, this is why I do this. I have fun. And not only,
yeah, I'm worked up. I need a nap. I need lunch. Let's go eat or something. Thanks for listening, y'all. See you next time.
Live free and independent.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you for joining us on the Banking with Life podcast. If you're watching on YouTube, make sure to like and subscribe. Otherwise, find us wherever you get your podcasts and subscribe to join us weekly.